The gas lights of Broadway flickered, casting eerie shadows on the rain-soaked pavement outside the majestic theater. Inside, the air was thick with perfume and anticipation, until a scream shattered the post-curtain silence. Evelyn Marwood, star of Moonlit Promises, lay dead in her dressing room. A crimson scarf knotted around her throat. Her emerald brooch, a mysterious gift, was gone. The door was locked, the window bolted. Hercule Poirot, present by chance, adjusted his mustache. "Mes amis, a crime most cunning," he declared. "But the little gray cells, they will unravel it." The stage was set for murder. Chapter 1. The Curtain Falls. The rain fell in silver sheets across Broadway, its relentless patter a counterpoint to the electric hum of New York City in the autumn of 1928. The majestic theater, its marquee ablaze with incandescent bulbs, stood as a beacon of glamour amidst the storm. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of rosewater perfume, cigarette smoke, and the faint musk of grease paint. The final notes of Moonlit Promises had just faded, and the audience's applause still echoed through the velvet-draped auditorium. Patrons in their furs and tailored suits spilled into the foyer, their chatter a vibrant hum of delight. It was a triumph, a glittering night for Evelyn Marwood, the star whose name burned brighter than the lights above. Backstage, however, the mood was taut. Stagehands darted through narrow corridors, their boots clattering on the worn wooden floors. Dressers adjusted costumes, their fingers nimble despite the late hour. In the star's dressing room, a sanctuary of mirrored vanities and silk draperies, Evelyn Marwood should have been basking in her triumph. Instead, a scream, sharp, primal and chilling, pierced the post-performance bustle. It came from the end of the corridor, where gaslights flickered in their sconces, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe with secrets. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a mustache as precise as his logic, her vanity. Her auburn hair fanned out like a halo. A silk scarf, vibrant crimson, was knotted tightly around her throat, its ends trailing across the floor. Her eyes, once luminous, stared blankly at the mirror, reflecting a frozen moment of terror. A single rose petal, vivid scarlet, lay near her feet, its delicate edges curling as if in mourning. Poirot's gaze swept the room with surgical precision. The dressing room was a study in opulence. A crystal chandelier cast fractured light, a velvet chaise lounged in the corner, and a wardrobe overflowed with sequined gowns. Yet, there was disorder. A shattered perfume bottle, its contents pooling on the oak floor, and a smudge of grease paint on the mirror, as if a hand had grasped it in desperation. Most striking was the absence of Evelyn's prized emerald brooch, a gift said to be from a mysterious admirer. It was her talisman, pinned to her costume each night. Yet now it was gone. The door, Poirot noted, was locked from the inside when the stagehand broke it open. The window, high and narrow, was bolted shut, its frame unmarred save for a faint scratch. "Impossible," Hastings muttered, his military bearing faltering. "How could anyone enter or leave?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign his little gray cells were stirring. "The impossible, mon ami, is merely a challenge to the intellect," he replied, crouching to examine the rose petal. It was no ordinary flower, he deduced, a rare hybrid, its scent faintly exotic. He pocketed it discreetly, his gloved fingers careful not to bruise its fragile form. The theater manager, a portly man named Harold Vance, burst in, his face flushed with panic. "This is a disaster. Evelyn Marwood, dead? The papers will crucify us." Poirot fixed him with a stare that silenced his bluster. "Monsieur Vance, a woman is dead. The papers, they will wait. Now, tell me, who saw Mademoiselle Marwood last?" Vance stammered. "She was alone after the curtain call."
"Battlefield. Surely it's a simple robbery gone wrong." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "No, Hastings. A robbery does not lock a door from within. This is murder, deliberate and cunning." He moved to the vanity, his fingers tracing the edge of the mirror. The grease paint smudge was fresh, its texture distinct from Evelyn's stage makeup. A clue, perhaps, or a distraction. The scarf, he observed, was one of Evelyn's own, its intricate pattern a signature of her wardrobe. Why would a killer use her own scarf? Passion, Poirot mused, or a message. He examined the lock, its mechanism tampered with. A subtle scratch suggested a tool had been used. But from which side? The window's bolt was secure, yet the scratch on its frame hinted at an attempt, successful or not. Poirot's mind raced. Evelyn Marwood was no mere actress. She was a phenomenon, her beauty and talent matched only by her ruthlessness. Whispers of her enemies were as common as her accolades. Had jealousy, love, or greed driven someone to this act? The rose petal, an anomaly in the chaos, nagged at him. It was too deliberate, too personal. He turned to the stagehand, who still lingered, wide-eyed. "You, monsieur, what is your name, and what did you see before the scream?" "Tommy, sir," the boy replied, swallowing hard. "I was sweeping the stage when I saw a shadow move near Miss Marwood's door. Thought it was just a crew member, but it was quick, like they didn't want to be seen." Poirot nodded, filing the detail away. A shadow, a petal, a missing brooch. The pieces of the puzzle were scattered, but Poirot's mind was already assembling them. The police arrived, their heavy footsteps disrupting the theater's delicate atmosphere. Inspector Malone, a gruff man with a penchant for quick conclusions, surveyed the scene. "Looks like a lover's quarrel," he declared. "We'll round up the usual suspects." Poirot's lips pursed in disapproval. "Inspector, you see a body, but I see a story. This murder is no simple..."
Now sealed by police tape. A faint scratch on the lock caught his eye, invisible to the untrained observer. "The little gray cells," he murmured. "They are already at work. Somewhere in this theater a killer waited, their masks still intact. But for how long?" Chapter 2. The players assemble. The foyer of the majestic theater was a cathedral of opulence, its crystal chandeliers casting prismatic glints across marble floors and gilded columns. The rain-soaked night pressed against the tall windows, but within, the air crackled with tension. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the gathered company, his diminutive frame commanding the room, as if he were the star of this grim drama. His gray eyes, sharp as cut glass, surveyed the faces before him, each a potential player in the murder of Evelyn Marwood. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, stood at his side, his brow furrowed with unease. The police, under Inspector Malone's brusque direction, were securing the dressing room. But Poirot had insisted on assembling the theater's key figures before they could scatter into the night. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant. A crime most heinous has been committed. Mademoiselle Marwood is dead, and the truth, it hides among you. Hercule Poirot will uncover it, but I require your cooperation. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a mix of indignation and fear. The gaslights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with secrets. Poirot's gaze settled on Leonard Grayson, the director of Moonlit Promises. A tall man with angular features and a shock of dark hair, Grayson stood with arms crossed, his fingers twitching against his velvet jacket. His eyes, usually alight with artistic fervor, darted toward the exits, betraying a restlessness that Poirot noted with interest. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said, stepping closer. You knew Mademoiselle Marwood well, no? A director and his star, they share a special bond. Grayson's jaw tightened. Careful timing, almost rehearsed. Martin Kell, a financier and Evelyn's former lover, stood apart, his broad shoulders rigid in a tailored suit. His face, handsome but weathered, bore the strain of a man accustomed to power, yet thwarted by emotion. Monsieur Kell, Poirot said, his tone probing. Your relationship with Mademoiselle Marwood ended, I understand. Was there bitterness? Kell's eyes flashed. Evelyn and I parted ways months ago, he said gruffly. I was in the audience tonight, not backstage. Ask anyone. His defensiveness intrigued Poirot, who sensed a deeper wound. Finally, Poirot's gaze fell on Sophie Durant, the wardrobe mistress. A slight woman with mousy hair and ink-stained fingers, Sophie hovered near the edge of the group, her apron crumpled from nervous twisting. Madame Durant, Poirot said, his voice softening. You dressed Mademoiselle Marwood, cared for her costumes. You saw her daily, no? Sophie nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. I just did my job, she murmured. Evelyn was kind to me, mostly. Her hesitation, Poirot noted, was a crack in her quiet facade. Hastings leaned close, whispering, Poirot, they all seem shaken, but who wouldn't be? This could still be a robbery gone wrong. Poirot shook his head. Non, mon ami. A thief does not lock a door from within, nor leave a rose petal as a calling card. This is personal, deliberate. He turned back to the group, his voice rising. Tell me, who among you saw anything unusual tonight? A stranger, a shadow, a sound. A young stagehand, Tommy, stepped forward, his cap twisted in his hands. I told you, sir. I saw a shadow near Miss Marwood's door before the show ended. Quick-like, it moved, then vanished. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Merci, Tommy. And this shadow, it was male, female, tall, short? Tommy hesitated. Couldn't tell, sir. It was dark and I was far off. Poirot nodded, filing the detail away. Theatrical relics, swords, masks, and curiously, a small key glinting in the dim light. Poirot lifted it, examining its worn edges. Mon Dieu, he murmured. A key to what? The dressing room, perhaps? Hastings frowned. But the door was locked from the inside. How could this help? Poirot's eyes twinkled. The lock, Hastings, is not what it seems. A clever hand could manipulate it, no? We must test this key. He slipped it into his pocket, alongside the rose petal. The prop room yielded another clue. A torn thread, crimson and silken, caught on a splintered crate. It matched the scarf around Evelyn's throat. But its presence here suggested a costume alteration, or a struggle. Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Returning to the foyer, Poirot overheard Clara whispering to a stagehand, her voice sharp. "I was on stage, I tell you. I didn't go near her room." The stagehand shrugged, unconvinced. Poirot approached, his presence silencing their exchange. "Mademoiselle Voss," he said, "you were seen backstage before the curtain call. Care to explain?" Clara's cheeks flushed. I needed a prop, a fan. It was nothing." Poirot nodded, but his mind catalogued her faltering alibi. Martin Kell, meanwhile, was arguing with Inspector Malone, his voice booming. "I told you, I was in the audience. Check the ticket stubs." Malone, unimpressed, scribbled notes. Poirot observed Kell's clenched fists, a sign of suppressed rage. Sophie, lingering near a costume rack, avoided Poirot's gaze, her fingers stained with dye that matched the thread. Leonard Grayson, pacing near the exit, muttered about the production's ruin. Each suspect, Poirot realized, was a thread in a tangled web, their motives interwoven with Evelyn's life. Evelyn Marwood had been a force, her beauty and talent matched by a ruthless ambition. She'd stolen roles from Clara, mocked Grayson's artistic vision, and discarded Kell after he funded her rise. Sophie, quiet and overlooked.
One key's purpose. Poirot smiled. By observing, Hastings. The theater, it speaks, if you listen. The foyer grew quiet, save for the distant patter of rain. Poirot's gaze lingered on the prop room door where the key had been found. A shadow, a thread, a petal, a key. The pieces were assembling, but the picture remained incomplete. Somewhere in this theater a killer watched, their mask still intact. But Poirot's little gray cells were relentless, and the curtain on their secrets was about to rise. Chapter 3. Shadows of Motive. The majestic theater's backstage corridors were a warren of secrets, their narrow passages lit by flickering gaslights that cast ghostly patterns on the walls. Hercule Poirot moved with purpose, his polished shoes clicking against the worn floorboards, Captain Hastings trailing behind. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, grease paint, and the faint, lingering perfume of roses, reminding Poirot of the scarlet petal now tucked safely in his pocket. Evelyn Marwood's murder was no random act. It was a performance, meticulously staged, and Poirot's little gray cells were alight with the challenge of unraveling its script. Poirot had dismissed the suspects to a guarded lounge under Inspector Malone's watch, but their faces lingered in his mind. Leonard Grayson's restless eyes, Clara Voss's calculated tears, Martin Kell's suppressed rage, and Sophie Durant's nervous reticence. Each had a motive, a shadow cast by Evelyn's brilliance. Poirot's task was to illuminate those shadows, to discern which hid the killer. "Hastings," he said, pausing near the dressing room, now sealed with police tape. "A murder is like a painting. The surface dazzles, but the truth lies in the brushstrokes beneath." Hastings, ever practical, adjusted his tie. "Poirot, you've got a key, a thread, and a petal. Promising, but they don't point to anyone yet. What's next?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "We return to the scene, mon ami. The dressing room. It speaks if we listen." He slipped past the police tape, ignoring a constable's protest. "Faint scratch. Possible," he said, "but unlikely. The window is too small, the drop too steep. No, the answer lies elsewhere." Poirot's attention turned to the grease paint smudge. It was distinct, a shade of crimson not used in Evelyn's stage makeup. He scraped a sample with a small knife, sealing it in an envelope. "This, Hastings, is no accident.
Someone touched this mirror in haste. He pictured the struggle. Evelyn, vibrant and defiant, facing her killer. The scarf, her own, suggested intimacy or irony. The killer knew her well, Poirot said, or wished to make it appear so. Leaving the dressing room, Poirot sought the theater's archives, a dusty room filled with playbills and ledgers. Here, he uncovered Evelyn's history. She was no mere starlet. Her rise was meteoric, fueled by ambition and a knack for making enemies. She'd stolen roles from Clara Voss, whose career languished in her shadow. Leonard Grayson, though celebrated, relied on Evelyn's draw to fill seats, yet she mocked his pretentious direction publicly. Martin Kell had bankrolled her early productions, only to be discarded when fame arrived. Sophie Durant, the quiet wardrobe mistress, had been Evelyn's confidant until a mysterious rift 2 years prior. Each, Poirot told Hastings, has a wound, and Evelyn held the knife. Poirot summoned Clara Voss for questioning, meeting her in a small rehearsal room. Her golden curls gleamed under the gaslight, but her eyes were wary. "Mademoiselle Voss," Poirot began, his tone gentle but probing. "You and Mademoiselle Marwood were rivals, no? Her success, it eclipsed your own." Clara's lips tightened. "I worked hard, Monsieur Poirot, but Evelyn was relentless. She took my role in Starlight Serenade last year, said I wasn't radiant enough." Her voice dripped with bitterness, quickly masked. "But I was on stage during the curtain call. Ask the stage manager." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And before the curtain call? You were seen backstage, near her door." Clara flinched. I paled. "I don't know how it got there. Someone must have placed it." Poirot's mustache twitched. A lie, or a truth half told? Martin Kell was next, his imposing frame filling a backstage alcove. "Monsieur Kell," Poirot said, "your heart, it was broken by Mademoiselle Marwood, no? And your purse, it suffered too." Kell's jaw clenched. "I loved her once, but I moved on. I was in the audience, not backstage. Check the stubs." His defiance was brittle, and Poirot sensed a deeper wound. "The emerald brooch," Poirot said. "You gifted it to her. Was it painful to see her wear it?" Kell's eyes darkened. "It was hers to keep. I'm no thief." But his fists clenched, betraying emotion. Sophie Durant was the last, found in the wardrobe room, surrounded by bolts of silk and sequined gowns. "Madame Durand," Poirot said, noting her trembling hands. "You knew Mademoiselle Marwood's secrets. What caused your falling out?" Sophie's eyes darted away. "We were friends once. She changed, became cruel, but I'd never hurt her." Her fingers, stained with crimson dye, matched the torn thread. Poirot held up the thread. It comes from her scarf, no? You handled her costumes." Sophie stammered. I repaired it earlier, that's all." Her fear was palpable, a crack in her quiet demeanor. Poirot and Hastings retreated to the foyer where the chandeliers cast a soft glow. "They all have motives," Hastings said, exasperated. "Clara's jealousy, Grayson's pride, Kell's heartbreak, Sophie's betrayal. But the locked door, how?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The door, it is the key to the puzzle. The lock was tampered with, but the key we found fits no lock here. It is a red herring, perhaps, or a clue to another secret." He paused, his mind racing. The grease paint smudge, the thread,
The petal.
Were you not?
Clara froze. I told you, I was adjusting my costume, but her voice shook and Poirot's gaze held her like a spotlight. The theater's shadows deepened, and the truth, Poirot knew, was closer than ever. Chapter 4. The Emerald's Secret. The majestic theater's grandeur seemed to mock the grim task at hand, its gilded arches and velvet curtains a stark contrast to the chilling reality of Evelyn Marwood's murder. Hercule Poirot stood in the dimly lit corridor outside the dressing room, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his gray eyes gleaming with the relentless churn of his little gray cells. The rain had ceased, but the air remained heavy with the scent of damp wood and the faint echo of roses, a reminder of the scarlet petal that haunted his thoughts. Captain Hastings, ever the faithful companion, hovered nearby, his brow furrowed with impatience. "Poirot," he said, "we've got a key that fits nothing, a thread from a scarf and a petal from a rose. It's a jumble. Where do we go from here?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind's quiet triumph. "Mon ami, the jumble, as you call it, is a tapestry. Each thread, the key, the petal, the grease paint, leads to the heart of the crime. And the heart, it is the emerald brooch." The missing brooch, a glittering enigma valued at thousands, had been Evelyn's talisman, pinned to her costume each night. Its absence from the crime scene suggested theft, yet the locked door and personal nature of the scarf hinted at deeper motives. Poirot's task was to untangle greed from passion, logic from deception. He led Hastings back to the dressing room, now a silent shrine to Evelyn's final moments. The police had retreated, leaving only a constable to guard the door. Poirot slipped inside, his eyes scanning the familiar scene. The shattered perfume bottle, its musky scent lingering. The crimson scarf still knotted around Evelyn's throat. The grease paint smudge on the mirror, now confirmed as matching Clara Voss's makeup kit. But it was suspects to the theater's rehearsal room. A cavernous space lined with mirrors that reflected their uneasy faces. Leonard Grayson, the director, stood with his arms crossed, his dark eyes flickering with impatience. Clara Voss, the understudy, sat primly, her handkerchief now abandoned, her gaze wary. Martin Kell, the financier, leaned against a wall, his tailored suit rumpled, his jaw tight. Sophie Durant, the wardrobe mistress, hovered near a rack of costumes, her ink-stained fingers twisting her apron. Poirot's presence silenced their murmurs, his authority as undeniable as the stage lights above. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot began, his voice precise. "Mademoiselle Marwood was the lifeblood of your production, no? Yet, I hear she planned to leave Moonlit Promises for a rival theater. This, it would ruin you." Grayson's face darkened. "Evelyn was difficult, yes, but I'd have managed. She signed a contract, she couldn't just leave." His voice carried a defensive edge, and Poirot noted the sweat beading on his brow. "And your whereabouts after the curtain call?" Poirot pressed. "In my office," Grayson insisted. "Alone. No one could corroborate it, and the key in his desk cast doubt on his claim." Turning to Clara, Poirot's tone softened. "Mademoiselle Voss, your star was dimmed by Mademoiselle Marwood's brilliance. Her departure, it would have opened the stage for you, no?" Clara's eyes flashed. "I didn't need her gone to prove myself. I was on stage, not in her room."
But her earlier admission of being backstage, coupled with the grease paint smudge, weakened her alibi. Poirot produced the receipt. "This valuation, mademoiselle. Did you know of it?" Clara shook her head, but her fingers twitched, betraying unease. Martin Kell was next, his imposing frame tense under Poirot's scrutiny. "Monsieur Kell," Poirot said, "you gifted the brooch to Mademoiselle Marwood, a token of love." "Was beautiful, that's all. I never touched it." But as she spoke, her apron slipped, revealing a folded sketch tucked inside. A meticulous drawing of the emerald brooch. Poirot's heart quickened, though his face remained impassive. "Madame, this sketch, it is yours," Sophie stammered. I draw sometimes. It was just a study. But the detail, the brooch's intricate filigree, the exact shade of the emerald, suggested obsession, not mere artistry." Poirot pocketed the sketch, his mind racing. "The heart," he said softly, "betrays what the tongue conceals." Dismissing the suspects, Poirot led Hastings to the theater's prop room, where the key had been found. The space was a treasure trove of theatrical relics, masks, swords, and trunks overflowing with forgotten props. Poirot examined the crate where the thread was found, its splintered edge suggesting a struggle or haste. "The thread, the key, the petal," he murmured. "They are not random. They are the killer's signature, intentional or not." Hastings sighed. "Poirot, you're building a case on scraps. The brooch is gone. Surely that's the motive." Poirot shook his head. "The brooch is a piece, mon ami. But the locked door, the scarf, they point to passion, not mere theft." Poirot's thoughts turned to the rose petal, its rarity a clue to the killer's identity. He dispatched a stagehand to the florist, seeking records of the weekly scarlet roses delivered to Evelyn. The answer, he suspected, lay in their sender. Meanwhile, he revisited the dressing room, his eyes drawn to the window's faint scratch. It was too high for easy access, yet the mark suggested an attempt. "The killer," Poirot said, "wished to mislead. The locked door is a trick, a stage illusion." Hastings frowned. "But how? No one could lock it from outside and vanish." Poirot smiled. "Patience, Hastings. The little gray cells. They work." Back in the foyer, Poirot overheard Leonard arguing with a stagehand, his voice sharp. "I wasn't near her room, I tell you." The stagehand shrugged, unconvinced. Clara, meanwhile, lit here, pointed to another lock, perhaps a metaphorical one. As the theater grew quiet, Poirot stood beneath the chandeliers, their light casting his shadow long and sharp. "Hastings," he said, "the brooch is the key to the motive, but the heart is the key to the killer. We must dig deeper." Hastings nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "And Sophie's sketch?" he asked. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "It is a confession, mon ami, though she does not yet know it." The stage was set, the players assembled, but the truth remained in the wings. Poirot's gaze lingered on the prop room door, where the key and thread had been found. A shadow moved in his mind, elusive but growing clearer. The killer was close, their masks slipping, and Poirot's little gray cells were ready to unmask them. Chapter 5. A Tangled Web. The majestic theater's backstage was a labyrinth of shadows, its narrow corridors winding past creaking floorboards and flickering gaslights. Hercule Poirot moved with the precision of a conductor, his polished shoes tapping a steady rhythm as he navigated the maze, Captain Hastings at his side. The air was thick with the dust of forgotten props and the faint, persistent scent of roses, a ghostly reminder of the scarlet petal in Poirot's pocket. Evelyn Marwood's murder was a puzzle of deliberate pieces, The torn thread, the mysterious key, the jeweler's receipt, and now Sophie Durant's sketch of the emerald brooch, its meticulous detail hinting at obsession. Poirot's little gray cells churned, weaving these fragments into a tapestry of truth. "Hastings," Poirot said, pausing near the prop room. "The theater, it is a stage for deception. Each suspect plays a role, but one has written a deadly script." Hastings, his military bearing strained by the late hour, rubbed his eyes. "Poirot, we've got motives galore. Clara's jealousy, Grayson's pride, Kell's heartbreak, Sophie's secrets. But the locked door? It's impossible." Poirot's mustache twitched, a spark of triumph in his eyes. "Non, mon ami. The impossible is merely a challenge to logic. The door, it is the heart of the enigma." Poirot led Hastings back to the dressing room, its door still sealed with police tape. Slipping inside, he surveyed the scene. Evelyn's body, now covered, the crimson scarf a grim relic of her final moments. The shattered perfume bottle pooling on the floor, and the grease paint smudge on the mirror. The scratch on the window frame nagged at him, a faint clue to an improbable entry, but it was the rose petal, rare and deliberate, that held his focus. He'd learned from the stagehand that scarlet roses arrived weekly for Evelyn, sender unknown. "The roses," Poirot murmured. "They are a signature, intentional or not." He turned to the vanity, where Sophie's eyes darted away. "I draw to pass the time," she said, her voice trembling. "Evelyn's things were beautiful. I admired them, that's all." Poirot held up the torn thread from the prop room. "And this, it matches her scarf. You handled it, no?" Sophie swallowed hard. "I repaired her costume that morning. A thread must have caught." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "Madame, you were seen near the dressing room after the show. Why?" Sophie's hands shook. I was checking her gown for tomorrow's performance. Evelyn was particular about her costumes." Her words were plausible, but her fear betrayed her. Poirot pressed the sketch against the table. "This is no idle drawing, madame. It is a confession of the heart." Sophie's face crumpled, but she said nothing, her silence louder than words. Leaving Sophie, Poirot sought Leonard Grayson, finding him in the orchestra pit, pacing like a caged lion. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, "the key we found in your desk, it is curious, no? You claim it was planted, but by whom?" Grayson's eyes flashed. "I don't know. Someone's trying to frame me. Evelyn was trouble, but I didn't kill her." His temper flared, and Poirot noted it. "You were alone after the curtain call," Poirot said. "No one saw you in your office. Where were you truly?" Grayson's jaw tightened. "I was checking the set. Things get misplaced." His alibi was flimsy, and the key's presence in his desk suggested guilt or manipulation. Next, Poirot confronted Martin Kell, who stood in the foyer, his broad frame silhouetted against the chandelier's glow. "Monsieur Kell," Poirot said, "your love for Mademoiselle Marwood was costly, no? The brooch, the funding, yet she discarded you." Kell's face darkened. "I moved on, Poirot. I was in the audience, clapping like a fool while she died." His bitterness crate where the thread was found. its splintered edge suggesting haste. "The thread," he said. "It came from the scarf. But how did it reach the prop room? A struggle, perhaps, or a deliberate planting." Hastings sighed. "Poirot, you're chasing ghosts. The brooch is gone. Surely it's theft." Poirot shook his head. "The brooch is a motive, but the scarf, the locked door, they speak of passion, not profit." Poirot's thoughts returned to the rose petal, its rarity a clue to the killer's identity. The stagehand had returned from the florist, reporting that the scarlet roses were ordered weekly by a veiled woman, paid in cash. "A woman," Poirot mused, "or someone wishing to appear so." The description was vague, but Sophie's nervous demeanor and her sketch of the brooch made her a focal point. Yet Clara's shaky alibi and Grayson's temper could not be dismissed, nor could Kell's suppressed rage. Back in the dressing room, Poirot re-examined the lock. The scratch suggested a tool, but the mechanism was intact. "The killer," he said, "locked the door from within, then left another way. The window, perhaps. Or a trick." Hastings frowned. "The window's too high, Poirot, and no one could climb out without being seen." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then we must find the trick, mon ami. The theater. It is full of illusions." Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the clues. The grease paint smudge, though matching Clara's kit, was too common to be conclusive. The thread linked to Sophie, but her explanation was plausible. The key found in Grayson's desk suggested a frame-up or carelessness. The rose petal, however, was unique, a rare hybrid, delivered with purpose. "The roses," Poirot said. "They are the killer's voice. We must trace them further." As they left the dressing room, Poirot overheard a stagehand whispering to another, "I saw Sophie near the dressing room after the show, fiddling with something." The word struck Poirot like a spotlight. He turned to Hastings. "Sophie. She is the strain of the late hour." His practical mind wrestling with the puzzle of Evelyn Marwood's murder. The air was heavy with the scent of old velvet and the faint, persistent perfume of roses, a reminder of the scarlet petal in Poirot's pocket, a clue that refused to be ignored. The torn thread, the mysterious key, the jeweler's receipt, and Sophie Durant's damning sketch of the emerald brooch had woven a complex web, but the locked door remained the heart of the enigma. "Hastings," Poirot said, pausing outside the sealed dressing room. "The theater is a stage, no? And this murder, it is a performance, with the locked door as its grand illusion." Hastings rubbed his temples, exasperated. "Poirot, we've got motives, clues, and suspects. But that door, locked from the inside, makes no sense. No one could leave without being seen." Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming with quiet triumph. "The impossible, mon ami, is merely a matter of perspective. We must recreate the crime to see the truth." Poirot slipped past the police tape, ignoring the constable's half-hearted protest, and entered the dressing room. The scene was unchanged. Evelyn's body, now covered, lay slumped across the vanity. The crimson silk scarf, knotted around her throat, a grim relic. The shattered perfume bottle pooling on the floor, its musky scent mingling with dust. The grease paint smudge on the mirror, linked to Clara Voss's makeup kit, was a distraction, too common in a theater. The rose petal, rare and deliberate, remained Poirot's obsession, its scarlet hue a silent accusation. But the door, locked from within, and the window, bolted with a faint scratch, were the puzzle's core. Poirot approached the door, examining the lock with a magnifying glass. The scratch he'd noted earlier suggested a tool, perhaps a wire or pin, used to manipulate the mechanism. "The lock," he murmured. "It was tampered with, but from the inside." The killer wished to create the locked door suggested an inside job. Yet the suspects, Grayson, Clara, Kell, and Sophie, were all outside when the scream was heard. The stagehands claimed that Sophie was near the dressing room post-show, combined with her sketch of the brooch, made her a focal point. But Grayson's temper, Clara's shaky alibi, and Kell's bitterness could not be dismissed. Poirot summoned Martin Kell to a quiet alcove where shadows danced across the walls. "Monsieur Kell," he began, his voice probing, "your love for Mademoiselle Marwood was costly. Your heart, your fortune. Her death, it frees you, no?" Kell's jaw tightened, his broad frame tense. "I told you, I was in the audience. I didn't need her dead to move on." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Your alibi, it is weak. And the brooch, you insured it, yes?" Kell hesitated. "For her, not me. I didn't care about it anymore." But his clenched fists betrayed a lingering wound, and Poirot noted it. Next, Poirot sought Clara Voss, finding her in the rehearsal room, her golden curls catching the gaslight. "Mademoiselle Voss," he said, "you were backstage during the murder window, near her door. The grease paint, it matches your kit." Clara's eyes flashed. "I've said it before, half the cast uses that shade. I was fixing my costume, nothing more." Poirot leaned closer. "And yet a witness places you near her room. What did you argue about?" Clara's composure faltered. We argued about a role. She taunted me, said I'd never outshine her. But I left before the curtain call." Her words were sharp, but her hands trembled, a crack in her polished facade. Poirot then confronted Leonard Grayson, who was pacing the orchestra pit, his dark eyes restless. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, "the key in your desk, it suggests guilt, or a frame-up. Which is it?" Grayson's temper flared. "I told you someone planted it. I was checking the set, not—" Chandeliers cast a golden glow. Hastings, exasperated, said, "Poirot, they all have holes in their stories. Sophie's sketch, Grayson's key, Clara's grease paint, Kell's temper. But the door. How did the killer lock it and vanish?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The door. It is a trick, Hastings. The killer manipulated the lock, perhaps with a tool, to create the illusion of impossibility. We must test this." Poirot returned to the dressing room, recreating the crime in his mind. Evelyn, alone after the curtain call, received a visitor. A struggle ensued. The shattered perfume bottle, the grease paint smudge. The scarf, her own, was used to strangle her, suggesting intimacy or irony. The brooch was taken, the door locked from within. But how? Poirot examined the floor, finding a second rose petal under a rug, its scarlet hue identical to the first. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "Another petal." The killer returned, or lingered. The petals were deliberate, a signature of passion or guilt. Poirot's thoughts turned to the florist's report. A veiled woman ordered the roses weekly, paid in cash. Sophie's nervous demeanor and her sketch made her a suspect. But Clara's presence backstage and Grayson's key could not be ignored. Kell's bitterness, too, was a thread in the web. "The roses," Poirot said. They are the killer's voice. We must find their source. Hastings sighed. Poirot, you're chasing flowers while a killer walks free. Poirot smiled. Non, mon ami. The flowers, they lead to the truth. As they left the dressing room, Poirot overheard a stagehand whispering to another. I heard a muffled cry before the scream, like someone was arguing. The words struck Poirot like a spotlight. He turned to Hastings. A cry, Hastings. The killer was with Evelyn before the scream. The web tightens. The theater's shadows deepened. The gaslights flickering like eyes watching from the wings. Poirot's gaze lingered on the window's scratch, a clue to the killer's sleight of hand. The truth was close, and his little gray cells were ablaze, sifting through the clues to unravel the killer's script. Hastings, Poirot said, pausing near the prop room where the key and thread had been found. The theater is a place of illusion, no? The killer has staged a performance, but the red herrings, they begin to unravel. Hastings rubbed his eyes, his patience thinning. Poirot, we've got petals, a key that fits nothing, a thread and a sketch. Now a muffled cry? It's a tangle, and that locked door makes it impossible. Poirot's mustache twitched, his gray eyes gleaming with quiet certainty. The impossible, mon ami, is a challenge to logic. The door, it is a trick. And the little gray cells, they see through it. Poirot's mind returned to the dressing room, though he did not enter. The scene was etched in his memory. Evelyn's body, the crimson scarf, the shattered perfume bottle, the grease paint smudge, and the second rose petal found under the rug. The stagehand's report of a muffled cry before the scream suggested an argument, a moment of passion or confrontation. The locked door tampered with from within was the puzzle's heart, but the window's scratch and the prop room's clues pointed to a carefully crafted illusion. The killer, Poirot murmured, wished to confuse, to make us chase shadows. But the shadows, they speak. Poirot dismissed the grease paint smudge as a red herring. Crimson was too common in a theater, used by Clara Voss and countless others. The torn thread linked to Sophie's costume repairs was plausible, but not conclusive. The key found in Leonard Grayson's desk suggested a frame-up or carelessness, but its purpose remained elusive. The rose petals, however, were deliberate. A rare hybrid, delivered weekly by a veiled woman according to the florist. Their scarlet hue was a signature, intentional or subconscious, and Poirot's thoughts kept circling back to Sophie, whose sketch of the emerald brooch betrayed an obsession. Poirot led unyielding. You were seen near the dressing room after the show. And the roses, scarlet, rare, delivered weekly. Did you send them? Sophie's eyes widened, her face paling. No, I didn't send flowers. I only fixed her costumes. Poirot held up her sketch of the brooch. This, it is no casual drawing. It is love, or envy. Sophie's voice broke. I admired her, that's all. She was everything. Her tears were genuine, but Poirot sensed a deeper truth, unspoken. Leaving Sophie, Poirot sought Leonard Grayson, finding him in the orchestra pit, his dark eyes restless. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said, the key in your desk, it accuses you, no? Yet you claim it was planted. Grayson's temper flared. I told you someone's framing me. I was checking the set, not in her room. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And yet no one saw you. The key. It is a clue, but to what? Grayson's hands clenched. I don't know. Evelyn was a nightmare, but I needed her. His defensiveness was a thread, but Poirot needed more to weave it into guilt. Next, Poirot confronted Martin Kell, who stood in the foyer, his broad frame silhouetted against the chandelier's glow. Monsieur Kell, Poirot said, your heart was broken by Mademoiselle Marwood, and your fortune diminished. Her death, it frees you, no? Kell's jaw tightened. I was in the audience, Poirot. I didn't need her dead to move on. But his eyes betrayed a flicker of pain. The brooch, Poirot pressed. You insured it. Did you know she planned to sell it? Kell hesitated. She mentioned it once. I didn't care. His bitterness suggested otherwise, and Poirot filed it away. Clara Voss was last, found adjusting her makeup in a rehearsal room mirror. Mademoiselle Voss, Poirot said, your alibi is weak. You were backstage near her door during the betrayal. He returned to the dressing room, his eyes drawn to the rug where the second petal was found. Kneeling, he searched again, his fingers brushing a hidden seam in the vanity's base. There, tucked in a crack, was a folded note scrawled in haste. Meet me after the show. We must talk. It was unsigned, its handwriting unfamiliar. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. A lure, perhaps, to draw Evelyn to her doom. Hastings peered at the note. A meeting? So, the killer planned it. Poirot nodded. The cry, the note, they suggest an argument, then murder. The locked door. It is a ruse to confuse. He examined the window scratch again, matching it to a prop tool, a thin metal rod used for set adjustments. This tool, he said, could manipulate the lock, or mark the window to mislead. Hastings frowned. But how did they leave? The door was locked, the window bolted. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The trick, Hastings, is in the timing. The killer was there, then gone, before the scream. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the clues. The roses, ordered by a veiled woman, pointed to Sophie, whose sketch and nervous demeanor betrayed her. Clara's presence backstage and her weak alibi kept her in focus. Grayson's key and temper suggested guilt, while Kell's bitterness hinted at a motive beyond money. The note was a new thread, its urgency a clue to the killer's intent. The heart, Poirot said. It betrays what the mind conceals. As they left the dressing room, Poirot overheard a stagehand whispering, I saw Clara arguing with Evelyn before the show, something about a role. The words struck Poirot like a spotlight. He turned to Hastings. The cry, the note, the petals. The killer was close to Evelyn, in heart or in hate. The web, it tightens. The theater's shadows deepened, the gaslights casting long, wavering pools of light. Poirot's gaze lingered on the vanity, where the note had been, but the locked door remained the enigma's heart. Hastings, Poirot said, pausing in the dimly lit foyer where chandeliers cast golden flickers across marble floors. The note. It is a revelation. Meet me after the show. We must talk. It is a lure, a prelude to murder. Hastings clutched the note, its crumpled paper stark in his hand. Poirot, this changes everything. Someone planned to meet Evelyn, argued with her, then killed her. But the locked door, how? Poirot's mustache twitched, his gray eyes gleaming with quiet certainty. The door, mon ami, is a trick, a stage illusion. The killer wished us to believe the impossible, but the little gray cells, they see through it. Poirot's mind replayed the dressing room scene. Evelyn's body, the crimson scarf knotted around her throat, the shattered perfume bottle, the grease paint smudge, the scratched window frame, and the 2 rose petals, deliberate signatures of the killer's heart. The note, found hidden in the vanity's mirror frame, suggested a planned encounter, its urgency hinting at passion or betrayal. The stagehand's report of a muffled cry before the scream reinforced this. A confrontation turned deadly. The killer, Poirot murmured, lured Evelyn, argued, then struck. The locked door, it is their sleight of hand. Poirot led Hastings back to the dressing room, slipping past the police tape with a nod to the weary constable. The room was a frozen tableau of tragedy, the vanity's mirror reflecting the gaslight's glow, the scarf a grim relic, the air thick with the ghost of Evelyn's perfume. Poirot examined the note again, its handwriting hurried but distinct, unlike any he'd seen from the suspects. This note, he said, it is a key. But to whom? Hastings frowned. Could it be forged, to throw us off? Poirot shook his head. No, it is genuine. The killer wrote it, but they did not sign it. They feared discovery. Poirot's thoughts turned to the window's scratch, matched to a prop tool, a pedal's left. Perhaps unintentionally. The killer exited, leaving an impossible scene. Poirot summoned Clara Voss to the rehearsal room where mirrors reflected her golden curls and wary eyes. Mademoiselle Voss, he began, holding up the note. This was found in Evelyn's mirror. Did you write it? Clara's face paled, but she shook her head. No, that's not my handwriting. I argued with her earlier about a role, but I didn't ask to meet her. Poirot's eyes narrowed. You were backstage, near her door during the murder window. The grease paint, it matches your kit. Clara's lips tightened. I told you everyone uses crimson. I wasn't in her room. Her defiance was polished, but her hands trembled, a crack in her facade. Next, Poirot confronted Martin Kell, found pacing in the foyer, his broad frame tense. Monsieur Kell, Poirot said, this note. Did you ask Mademoiselle Marwood to meet you? Kell's eyes darkened. No, I was in the audience, not backstage. I hadn't spoken to her in months. His voice was gruff, but his hesitation betrayed him. The brooch, Poirot pressed. You gifted it. Did you know she planned to sell it? Kell's jaw clenched. She mentioned it once. It didn't matter to me, but his fists suggested otherwise, and Poirot noted the lie. Poirot then sought Leonard Grayson in the orchestra pit, his dark eyes restless. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said. The key in your desk, the note in her mirror, do they connect? Grayson's temper flared. I didn't write any note. Someone's framing me with that key. Poirot leaned closer. Your alibi is weak, monsieur. No one saw you in your office. Grayson's face reddened. I was checking the set, I told you. His defensiveness was a thread, but Poirot needed more to weave it into guilt. Finally, Poirot returned to Sophie Durand in the wardrobe room, surrounded by shimmering gowns. Her mousy hair was disheveled, her ink-stained fingers clutching a needle. Via the window, perhaps, using the tool to mark it. then locked the door to confuse. The note lured Evelyn. The scarf killed her. The brooch was taken. Hastings frowned. The window's too high, Poirot, and no one could climb in without being seen. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Then we must find the trick, mon ami. The theater is a place of hidden doors and false walls. He recalled the prop room where the tool and thread were found. A stagehand had mentioned a hidden panel near the dressing room, used for quick costume changes. Could the killer have used it? Poirot resolved to investigate. Back in the foyer, Poirot overheard Clara whispering to a stagehand, her voice sharp. "I wasn't in her room, I swear." The stagehand shrugged, unconvinced. Martin Kell paced, his eyes darting to the exits. Grayson muttered about the production's ruin, his hands fidgeting. Sophie retreated to her wardrobe room, her sketch a silent accusation. Each suspect, Poirot realized, was a player in a deadly drama, their motives interwoven with Evelyn's life. Evelyn had been a tempest, her charm matched by cruelty. She'd stolen Clara's roles, mocked Grayson's vision, spurned Kell's love, and betrayed Sophie's trust. The brooch, a symbol of her allure, was a magnet for envy. But the scarf and petals spoke of a personal vendetta. The note was the key, its urgency a clue to the killer's heart. The mind, Poirot said, constructs a perfect crime. But the heart, it betrays. As the theater grew quiet, Poirot stood beneath the chandeliers, their light casting his shadow long and sharp. "Hastings," he said. "The note, the petals, the scarf. They are the killer's confession, though they do not yet know it." Hastings nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "And the door, Poirot?" "It's still locked." Poirot's gaze lingered on the prop room, where the tool and thread had been found. A shadow moved in his mind, sharp revelation. The locked door, however, remained the enigma's stubborn heart. "Hastings," Poirot said, pausing in the foyer, where the chandelier's golden glow danced across marble floors. "The note, the petals, the scarf, they are the killer's confession, written in the language of the heart. We are close, mon ami, to unveiling the motive." Hastings clutched his hat, his brow furrowed. "Poirot, the note proves someone lured Evelyn, but the locked door, how did they escape? And Sophie's sketch of the scarf, it's too precise to be innocent." Poirot's mustache twitched, his gray eyes gleaming with the clarity of impending triumph. "The door, it is a trick, Hastings. The killer's illusion is crumbling, and the little gray cells, they see the truth." Poirot's mind replayed the crime. Evelyn Marwood, radiant star of moonlit promises, strangled with her own crimson scarf, her emerald brooch stolen, her dressing room locked from within. The 2 rose petals, rare and deliberate, were a signature. The note, a lure to a fatal meeting. The window's scratch, a misdirection crafted with a prop tool. The muffled cry, reported by a stagehand, suggested an argument before the scream that alerted the theater. Sophie Durant's sketches of the brooch and the scarf's unique pattern were no mere artistry. They were a window into her soul. Poirot's thoughts zeroed in on her, though Clara Voss's shaky alibi, Leonard Grayson's temper, and Martin Kell's bitterness kept them in the frame. Poirot summoned Sophie to the wardrobe room, where sequined gowns shimmered like silent witnesses. Her mousy hair was disheveled, her ink-stained fingers trembling as she clutched a bolt of silk. "Madame Durand," Poirot began, his voice gentle but unyielding. "Your sketches, they are a confession. The brooch, the scarf, you knew them intimately, no?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears, her face paling. I drew what I saw. Evelyn's things were beautiful."
To her. "A token of your love." Sophie nodded, sobbing.
"It was mine to her, a symbol. She wore it to taunt me, to remind me of what I lost." Poirot's voice softened. "And the scarf? You drew it, handled it, used it." Sophie's eyes widened in horror. "No, I didn't kill her. I was angry, yes, but I couldn't." Her denial was desperate, but Poirot sensed truth beneath her fear. Leaving Sophie, Poirot sought Clara Voss in the rehearsal room, where mirrors reflected her golden curls and wary eyes. "Mademoiselle Voss," he said, holding up the note. "This lured Evelyn to her death. Did you write it?" Clara's lips tightened. "No, that's not my hand. I argued with her earlier about a role, but I didn't ask to meet her." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "You were backstage near her door during the murder window." Clara's composure faltered. "I was fixing my costume as I said. You've got nothing." But her hands trembled, and Poirot noted it. Next, Poirot confronted Martin Kell in the foyer, his broad frame tense under the chandelier's glow. "Monsieur Kell," Poirot said, "the note. Did you ask Mademoiselle Marwood to meet?" Kell's jaw clenched. "No, I was in the audience, not backstage." His bitterness was palpable, but his alibi remained unverified. "The brooch," Poirot pressed. "You gifted it, then learned she planned to sell it. Did it anger you?" Kell hesitated. "It stung, but I didn't kill her." His fists suggested otherwise, and Poirot filed it away. Poirot then sought Leonard Grayson, pacing in the orchestra pit. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, "the key in your desk, the note in her mirror, do they connect?" Grayson's temper flared. "I didn't write any note. Someone's framing me." Poirot leaned closer. "Your alibi is weak, monsieur. Evelyn's departure would ruin you." Grayson's face reddened. "She was trouble, but I needed her alive." His defensiveness was a clue passage, pulling a wire to secure the lock. The window's scratch was a ruse to suggest an external entry. Poirot summoned Sophie again, confronting her with the panel. "Madame, you knew this theater's secrets. You used this passage, no?" Sophie sobbed, shaking her head. "No, I didn't." But her sketches of the brooch and scarf sealed her motive. Poirot searched her wardrobe station, finding a hidden compartment in her sewing kit. Inside was the emerald brooch, its green fire glinting accusingly. "Madame," Poirot said, "you took it, a symbol of your pain." Sophie collapsed, confessing. I went to her room, via the panel. We argued. I was angry. She laughed at me. I used the scarf, in a moment of rage. I didn't mean to." Poirot's heart sank, though his face remained stern. "You locked the door, left the petals, took the brooch." Sophie nodded, tears streaming. "The roses. I sent them, hoping she'd remember me. I didn't plan to kill her." Her confession was raw, driven by betrayal and love twisted into hate. Poirot handed the brooch to Hastings. "The heart," he said, "is the most dangerous stage." As Sophie was led away by the police, Poirot stood in the foyer, the chandeliers casting his shadow long and sharp. "Hastings," he said, "the puzzle is nearly complete, but Sophie claims another was involved. Is it true, or a desperate lie?" The theater's shadows deepened, the gaslights flickering like eyes in the wings. The truth was close, but a final thread remained. Chapter 10. The Final Curtain. The majestic theater's grand foyer stood hushed, its chandeliers casting a golden glow that seemed to mourn the tragedy unfolding within its walls. The air was heavy with the scent of polished marble and fading roses, the echoes of Evelyn Marwood's murder lingering like a ghostly encore. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the room, his diminutive frame radiating authority, his polished shoes gleaming under the flickering light. His wept for Evelyn. Poirot's mind replayed the crime. Evelyn, strangled with her own crimson scarf, her emerald brooch stolen, her dressing room locked from within. The hidden panel, discovered near the wardrobe, had revealed the killer's path, a secret passage to the prop room, explaining the locked door. Sophie's sketches and the brooch, hidden in her sewing kit, sealed her guilt, but her desperate claim lingered like a discordant note. Poirot gathered the remaining suspects, Leonard Grayson, Clara Voss, and Martin Kell, in the foyer, under the watchful eyes of Inspector Malone and his constables. The police had taken Sophie away, her sobs echoing through the corridors, but Poirot's work was not done. "Mes amis," he began, his voice clear and commanding, "Mademoiselle Marwood's murder is solved. Yet a question remains. Madame Durand claims another was involved. Hercule Poirot will uncover the truth, for no secret escapes the little gray cells." Leonard Grayson, the director, stood with arms crossed, his dark eyes restless. "This is absurd," he snapped. "Sophie confessed. She acted alone. Why drag this out?" Clara Voss, her golden curls framing a pale face, clutched her hands tightly. "She's lying to save herself," she said, her voice sharp but unsteady. Martin Kell, his broad frame rigid, glared at Poirot. "I was in the audience, Poirot. You've got your killer, let it go." Their protests were vehement, but Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, piercing each facade. He began with the note found in Evelyn's mirror frame. "Meet me after the show. We must talk." Its urgent scrawl had lured Evelyn to her doom, and Sophie's confession confirmed she wrote it, driven by a love turned to hate. The scarlet petals, rare hybrids ordered by a veiled woman, were her signature, a subconscious plea for discovery. The brooch, a gift from Sophie to Evelyn, was reclaimed in rage, hidden in her sewing kit. The scarf, its pattern meticulously sketched, was a weapon of passion. The hidden panel explained the locked door. "Yet your alibi is weak." Grayson's temper flared. "I told you I was checking the set. Sophie's trying to drag me down with her." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And yet no one saw you. Your career hung by Evelyn's thread. Her departure would ruin you." Grayson's face reddened, but he held firm. "I didn't need her dead. I'd have found another star." Turning to Clara, Poirot said, "Mademoiselle Voss, you were backstage near her door during the murder window. You argued with Evelyn. Did you know of Sophie's plan?" Clara's eyes widened. "No. I hated Evelyn, yes, but I didn't plot with Sophie. She's lying." Her voice trembled, and Poirot noted the fear beneath her defiance. The grease paint smudge once linked to her was too common to convict, but her presence backstage kept her in focus. Finally, Poirot faced Kell. "Monsieur, Your heart and fortune were broken by Evelyn. Did you conspire with Sophie, perhaps to reclaim the brooch? Kell's jaw clenched. I was in the audience, Poirot. Sophie spinning tales to save herself. His bitterness was raw, but his alibi, though unverified, held no link to Sophie's actions. Poirot's mind churned. Sophie's confession was complete: motive, means, opportunity. Her claim of an accomplice lacked evidence, a desperate bid to muddy the waters. Poirot led Hastings to the dressing room, now a silent shrine. He examined the hidden panel again, its seam barely visible near the wardrobe. The killer, he said, entered here, argued, used the scarf, took the brooch, and locked the door with a wire pulled through the crack. The window scratch, made with a prop tool, was a ruse. Hastings nodded, but doubt lingered. Poirot, Sophie's story fits, but an accomplice? Could someone have helped her? Poirot shook his head. No, mon ami. The petals, the scarf, the brooch, they are Sophie's alone. Her claim is a lie, born of panic. To test this, Poirot revisited the prop room, where the key and thread were found. The key, useless for the dressing room, was a distraction, likely note. Entered via the hidden panel, argued, and killed her with the scarf. She took the brooch, locked the door, and left the petals, her heart's signature. Grayson exhaled. Clara's shoulders sagged and Kell's fists unclenched. Inspector Malone nodded, satisfied. Good work, Poirot. We'll book her. Sophie, already in custody, had no accomplice. Her confession was complete. Poirot handed the brooch to Malone, its green fire dimmed by tragedy. The heart, he said softly, is the most dangerous stage. It drives us to love, to hate, to kill. As the police dispersed, the theater grew quiet, its grandeur restored but haunted. Poirot stood beneath the chandeliers, his shadow long and sharp. Hastings, he said, the case is closed, but the theater, it keeps its secrets. The show, as always, goes on. Hastings nodded, relieved. You did it, Poirot. Those little gray cells never fail. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Non, mon ami. They see what the eyes cannot. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, the city's pulse resuming. Poirot adjusted his bow tie, his mind already turning to the next puzzle. The Majestic's lights dimmed, but Broadway's glow endured, a testament to resilience in the face of tragedy. Sophie's sobs faded into the night, and Poirot departed, leaving the theater to its ghosts, his work complete.